And thank you for watching KTN News. Welcome back to News Center. Now, yesterday, President William Ruto addressed the nation on the status of the country, Kenya. He mentioned a lot of things, including agriculture, how he will fight corruption, his plan around education. But all these Kenyans also have their views on that. And in studio with me to help us just make sense of some specific sectors is Agatha Thuo, General Manager, Agriculture Sector Network, and John Karani is a council chair for the Kenya Institute of Supply Management. Welcome on set as we have this discussion. And I'll start straight with you, Karani, as we have this discussion now. The president is keen on fighting corruption. And with these, there's always the issue to do with supply and procurement. In his plan, 1 year later, have you seen any changes in his plan in fighting corruption?
So, if we go back to about almost a year later, earlier on actually, the president said something that triggered us as supply chain professionals to take action. The statement was that procurement is the bedroom of corruption. And that actually spurred us to take what I want to call preemptive action to ensure that that statement or that narrative does not continue being perpetuated. And so, as he made the national statement, we in the back room now, we decided how can we sanitize, bring sanity to this profession called procurement and supply chain, which, by the way, is a key driver for the economy. If you think about how government spends money, whether it's ministries or whichever institutions, about 70% is spent on procurement, the rest is salaries. So it tells you, therefore, getting value for money for the government's expenditure is at the heart of what the president is saying. And I think he's not seeing that because there are projects which are stalled. There are projects which are not completed. There are so many procurement initiatives that don't see the light of day. So we've gone back and say, where is the weakest link? And that's why we're calling it supply chain. And we said we as procurement professionals want to make sure it does not start with us. You know, you got to understand that supply chain is a chain. It's got many players, multiplicity of stakeholders, right from the boardroom to the accounting officer, to the other people that play a role at the county level. It's a governors, it's a CEOs, the chief officers, the MCS. They all actually have a role. Unfortunately, what I want to call the influences from above have had a bigger effect in actually curtailing the efforts of sanitizing procurement.
And let me come to you, Agatha, now. You're big in issues to do with agriculture, and they're big also in supply and management, and they also play their role in making sure that the subsidized fertilizer gets to you. As a farmer out there and making sure that the farmer gets that which belongs to them, how has it been for you for the past 1 year?
Thank you very much. My name is Agatha Thuo, and I'm the General Manager for the Agriculture Sector Network. The Agriculture Sector Network is the umbrella body for private sector actors in the agriculture sector, and indeed the Agriculture Sector Board of the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. And our membership is drawn from agriculture associations across all the value chains in the agriculture spectrum. And the Fertilizer Association of Kenya is also a member of the Agriculture Sector Network. So fertilizer in Kenya has, not just in Kenya, but in the world has been affected. I think you have seen that the prices of fertilizer has been escalating, going up. And this indeed has a big challenge and a very big impact on our production as a country. A lot of our fertilizer goes into maize production in this country. It also goes into cash crop farming, especially coffee, tea, horticulture. And the escalating prices of fertilizers has a big impact on the sector. And one of the promises and the commitments that the president made was to subsidize fertilizer, which even from a private sector perspective is a very good thing. Fertilizer, I think you remember, was going for around, for a 50 kg bag, 6,500 shillings, which is out of reach for many farmers, of many farmers, especially the smallholder farmers in this country. It's really out of reach, very uncompetitive, and very difficult for farmers to break even as a country. And the president subsidized fertilizer initially from 3,500, and now the fertilizer is retailing at 2,500. But one of the biggest challenges we have been experiencing as private sector is because, fertilizers ordinarily are procured from agro dealers. And we have quite a number of agro dealers in this country. Let me say between 20 and 30,000 agro dealers in the country. And those are the avenues that the farmers are used to. That's where the farmers go to procure their fertilizers from. And one of the challenges has actually been the fact that when this fertilizer was procured by two major companies in this country, and the distribution channel has been the National Cereals and Produce Board depots in the country. And the distribution of the National Cereals and Produce Board depots. For example, a county may hardly have more than 2 depots. So you can imagine the vastness of a county and the fact that a smallholder farmer who is placed at the corner of a county has to go to the depot to actually access that fertilizer. And the nature of our smallholder farmers is such that some of them are really small. They only require like 1 or 2 bags of fertilizer. Just 1 or 2 bags of fertilizer. And we have about 8,000 smallholder farmers in this country. So you can imagine a farmer who has to travel like 20 kilometers to go and access that fertilizer. And that indeed increases the cost plus efficiency. And a lot of time is actually spent on the farmers going to procure this fertilizer from the National Cereals and Produce Board depots. So we have a recommendation that this fertilizer should actually be retailed through the agro dealers. That's what the smallholder farmers are used to. I mean, you can walk, take a bike, go to your nearest agro dealer shop and be able to get this fertilizer.
Yeah, and I come to you, Karani. She's saying issues to do with supply. That is your area. She's raising concern in terms of procurement of these things from abroad, getting to Kenya, and making sure that it gets closer to the people so that they don't also incur cost. As a person who says you've gone to the back end trying to sort out these problems, what have you been doing and how are you making it easy? What are some of the wins so far in addressing issues like she's raising?
Let me just reiterate one point she's raised. It's actually called mapping out that value chain from source. And that's what supply chain is all about. From the time you order, source, the fertilizers are, is it mainly Ukraine or some countries there? What's the value chain that actually ends up making prices unaffordable here? Because agricultural fertilizer, I'm a farmer, so I'm also I come from Kitale, which is called the granary of Kenya. And we suffer a lot from those costs of fertilizer. So what I'm saying is that if we can map that value chain properly and efficientize, it's not such a word in English, but it's actually a real word. How can we efficientize the supply chain process from the time it's sourced? It's very affordable up there, but there's something that happens in between. By the time it reaches the port, transported into, say, in my case, to Kitale, where I come from, I can tell you what she's saying is true. You got a person that comes from the back of the county. How do you expect them to come to Kitale to add? So there's other things that are not procurement related, and I want to insist on that. The costs that are added on, including the taxes, and some very good thing that the president has done to subsidize by removing those incremental taxes. This fertilizer can actually be very affordable, and many organizations have actually, countries have transformed agriculture by making fertilizer affordable, because that's where it all starts from. And so we as supply chain people, as professionals, of course, will still do our role to efficientize the part that we play, which is the clearing charges, all those things, but there are other players in this chain that actually add costs, unnecessary costs that don't need to be there. And so what we need to do is to work together with the KEPSA, with ourselves, with the other actors in the chain to ensure that we remove unnecessary costs from fertilizer and make fertilizer truly affordable. That will actually lead to number one, promise of the better economy, which is a focus of our national dialogue, which is agricultural transformation. It cannot just happen like that. It has to be seen from the input cost being made affordable, fertilizers, the whole mechanics and the whole seeds and all that. That is the only way to make true agricultural transformation happen.
And I'll come to you. We have a discussion about the Procurement, Supply and National Dialogue 2020, yes. The second one, yeah?
Exactly.
But before that, let me just come to you, Agatha. Now, we've talked about affordability of fertilizer, but we also know that due to climate change, there has been drought, now we have rains. As a person who deals with a farmer, how are you having this conversation with farmers so that they take advantage of the rains that they have right now to be able to grow more, take advantage of the fertilizer, having discussions with government on how these fertilizer will trickle down to the smallholder farmers? How are you having that conversation with all stakeholders involved?
Yes, let me say that as a private sector, we have not been working in isolation. We work very closely with the government. In fact, the private sector, ASNET is a member of the Intergovernmental Forum for Agriculture. So we sit with the national government, especially the Ministry of Agriculture. We also sit with the Council of Governors, and we are also part of the three-legged stool. So we have a lot of conversations about that. And actually, this is not the first time that we are doing this. And what I can say is that the government has also been listening to this, because this is a conversation that we have been having about the distribution of fertilizers, a more effective way of distributing fertilizers to the farmers. And recently, actually, I heard the president himself mention that they have been listening to this, and this is something that they are willing to do, to use the agro dealers to actually be able to distribute the fertilizer to the farmers. And I must say that the fertilizer is quite a lot. 5 million bags of fertilizer is not little. It's fertilizer that can actually benefit a lot of farmers in this country. And now that we have the rains, the El Nino rains. Okay, El Ninos are just like COVID. You know, there are people who took advantage of COVID and they became millionaires because of COVID. And I think with El Nino, we can also do the same. First of all, I would encourage every farmer. This is a very opportune time for planting trees in this country. As we deal with the issues of climate change and adaptation to climate change, I think we can take advantage of El Nino, first of all, to be able to plant trees. And I'm happy that the government has also, announced that Monday is going to be a public holiday. So I would want to urge every farmer to think about planting trees, and particularly the indigenous trees. I think that is very, very important, because as a country, this is going to really help us to adapt to climate change issues. The other thing is that if you check what is happening in some of the areas in this country, there is a lot of soil erosion. Soil erosion. We are losing a lot of our soil, especially the topsoil, to the floods. And I think this should be an experience and a learning experience for farmers. Let them terrace and plant, benches so that they can actually manage some of the soil that is getting lost, because we are losing a lot of it, and this is ultimately is going to have a lot of effect on the quality of our soils and the fertility of the soil, and we are going to go back. We are leaching, actually, even the fertilizers that we are leaching them into our rivers. So we really need to take care of that. Let the farmers remember what we used to do before. Do terracing and they take care of your farm. So I would want to urge every farmer to assess their level of vulnerability. How vulnerable are you? How is your farm? The other thing is that we can also take advantage of these rains and do what we call short season crops. Some of the crops take just three months, and especially in some of the areas where El Nino is not so devastating, I would want to urge the smallholder farmers and all the farmers indeed to take advantage of these rains.
Let me come to Karani. Now, this is the second Procurement and Supply Chain National Dialogue, and the Deputy President is expected there, Prime Cabinet Secretary. And why are we having this conversation as an important aspect of better that the government is pushing as the main agenda? Excellent. And what do you hope to achieve with this?
Thank you so much, Dennis. So this is really leverage. If you think about the whole issue about national dialogues, it's always been used as a catalyst for having a dialogue that transforms the nation. And so we take the advantage of this opportunity to put supply chain at the center of the better agenda. And when you think about better, actually there are 5 pillars. One of them is where Agatha deals with agricultural transformation. Then go the other, which we play a big role in, and then the MSMEs, these medium and small size, small scale entrepreneurs. These are going to be the game changers. So we want to put that at the center of the economy. Then the digital superhighway. This is all about supply chain. If you think about the whole better agenda, apart from even healthcare, in this case, or the other aspects of manufacturing, supply chain is at the center in delivering the better agenda. And so by having this very high-level delegation is to seek their support, therefore, to ensure that the resources that are normally allocated for procurement are actually used for the purpose for which it is meant. And so that tells you that it's not for lack of resources sometimes, it's for the lack of optimal utilization of those resources. And that's why our theme is very aptly called optimizing the economic power of procurement and supply chain in the better agenda. So it's a very intentionally delivered word, and we're moving away from the issues around corruption, because that is not going to help us. Much as we need to deal with that, is how can we harness the full power. The word I love using is how can we unleash procurement as a force of economic transformation. And I think that's really what we are saying by getting the leadership of this country to support us and to take center stage in taking the lead in this conversation. We will leverage the resources that are packaged, allocated for procurement.
And you equally also, Agatha, have a summit, Western Region Agricultural Summit. What do you intend to achieve with that? Because Western Region is considered the food basket of the country.
Yeah, thank you very much. We organize national agriculture summits every year. Indeed, this year is our third. And the National Agriculture Summits are a platform that brings together the public sector, the private sector. So we dialogue one-on-one on what are the challenges in the agriculture sector. Agriculture is so very important in this country, you know, being a source of employment to so many people and contributing very significantly to the GDP in the country. And therefore, any challenge in the agriculture sector should be taken very, very seriously. Especially noting that 80% of rural livelihood depends on agriculture. So any issue that affects agriculture, including policies and the levels of taxation, should be an issue that must addressed and very, very well and very soberly. So we organize each year these platforms as a dialogue platform to bring all the stakeholders together. We had the first National Agriculture Summit. We had the third National Agriculture Summit this year in the month of July. And they brought together everyone that needed to speak about agriculture. In fact, our chief guest in the summit was the CS in charge of agriculture. But we have realized that since agriculture is devolved, we need to go down to the, down to the counties and be able to interact with the counties and identify what are the challenges that affect agriculture in the various economic blocks in our country. So we have decided deliberately to move to Western Kenya, and we are having our first Western Kenya Region Agriculture Summit on the 16th of November. And the theme of our summit is leaving no one behind on issues of agriculture competitiveness. The competitiveness of the agriculture sector is very important because when you raise prices, the one who carries the burden at the end of the day is the farmer. The farmer. When you increase the cost of doing business, the one who actually carries the burden at the end of the day is the farmer himself. And we must think very, very soberly. We can do everything, but we are not looking at the policies and the levels of taxation. The farmer may buy even what we are saying, technologies that are cheap, like subsidized fertilizers. But if we are not looking at the cost of doing business, ultimately the one who bears the entire burden is the farmer, and they may not be able to do so much. So we have an opportunity together with the neighboring county governments in Western Kenya, that is Kisumu, Kakamega, Bungoma, Siaya, and Vihiga. We have an opportunity to bring all of them together. So we are having a dialogue with the county government because the county government is also in a way responsible for policy. Every year they are doing finance bills. We also have national policies that are also affecting agriculture in the region. And as private sector, we are very keen on farmers working for the industry. I mentioned some of our members are the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, the Agriculture Produce Association of Kenya, Agriculture Process Association of Kenya, and many other associations that are actually interested in these value chains. And we need to dialogue so that the farmers can produce what the private sector needs in terms of quality and quantity and all that.
Agatha Thuo, General Manager, Agriculture Sector Network, and John Karani, Council Chair, Kenya Institute of Supply Management, both coming together to complement each other in making sure that as the president talks about agriculture, supply comes to making sure that at the end of the day, the farmer gets that which is needed. And Karani also saying that these will help deal with the issues around corruption and the procurement sector that the country continues to deal with on a daily basis. Conversations that we need now as the cost of living is skyrocketing over the roof. But such initiatives will help us get it right. My name is Dennis Aseto. Many thanks for watching News Center. Enjoy the rest of your viewing, and for everybody who made this a success, including my editor